There was previously artificial grass down before. So there's some form of prep work done. But what we first need to do is create our edges for the grass to stick onto. So we're going to run along here some treated wood, treated timber, 2x3, and along the edge of the patio here we're going to haunch it. So what we're going to aim to do is create an area of cement a bit like this. You can see there the gap. The grass will just stick nicely to here and be flush with the top patio. And we'll do that all the way around, fill in the levels, and then I'll show you the next stage. Right, as you can see, we've now got our timber levelling, treated timber, all the way around. And we've backfilled MOT type 1 up to level of the timber, and then when we whacker plate it, that will drop about ½ an inch, and we can fill that with sharp sand all the way around. What we'll do is we'll pin the underlay and the grass and the membrane to this timber. Created a nice ramp to lead up to the patio, so the grass will slope down the bottom here. And then what we've got to do now is just backfill and level off this last section here before whackering. What we've got now is the site level before whackering with MOT and sand. So this is roughly level, but obviously it's going to drop once we whacker plate it. And then what we'll do after that, we'll see all the low points, the bits that need more sand, and then after it's whackered now, we'll give it a real good hour's whacking all the way over with a large whacker plate, and then infill the low bits with sharp sand and create a nice level that will be anywhere between 10 and 30 mil thick of sharp sand. On this job, more likely about 15-20 mil average, and what that'll do is create a nice soft all over one level for the membrane to sit on, and they won't get pierced by any of the type 1 stones. So we're going to whacker it now and come back and then look at our levels, and I'll show you how to do the final level with the sharp sand. We've now done our first pass with the whacker plate, so everything's nice and compacted. We just need to level it now with the sharp sand, as I said, about 10-20 mil. As you can see, the site now is fully graded with sharp sand and levelled, but what we need to do is now we need to whacker plate it so that any low spots will be revealed, and then we'll go back in and fill those once more before laying the weed membrane on top. The best way to level this is the wooden edges round the side. If you put your spirit level against them and drag them back, you can then find the level and then work left to right, front to back, or wherever you want to do it. Just keep going in the same direction and you'll get a nice level surface. But unfortunately the whacker is going to reveal all the low spots where there's been more sand than not. So we'll do that and then we'll come back. So now the ground's whackered, other than obviously where I took the whacker plate off there. That bow is a bow in the plyboard, not a bow in the actual floor. So it's all whackered, it's all hard. If you see, if I walk on it now, it doesn't give way and only leaves a tiny footprint, which means that it's hard enough and it's compacted. So what we're going to do now is go over with some more sand and a trowel and float, and you just get this all level. We're not going to whacker it again. We're going to use the last bits of sand to get it all nice and level, and then we'll put the membrane down. As you can see, we've got rid of all the ridge marks from where the whacker plate went down with a couple of trowels, as you would screed a floor. If you look at floor screeding videos to give you an idea. So now we're ready to put the membrane down, because that's level and hard and not leaving any footprints when you walk on it.
Luke, right, go ahead.
We've got the membrane down, peg down as well to stop it burning around. And what we're going to do now is lay the Hall & Young Aristo cushion to give us a nice firm comfort as well underfoot. And we'll basically, we can pin that to the ends with tacks like we've done over here with the membrane, because the wooden frame that we've got just pin straight down the membrane as well with membrane pegs. So we'll run this out side to side, pin it at the ends. Where there's no wood, we'll use 9-inch galvanised nails to fix it into the sand. Here is every sort of metre or so, and we're staggering it. We're just using some 9-inch galvanised nails, and fixing this underlay down. And what that will do is that will just stop any movement on there, and then when the grass is fixed onto it, it'll be nice and solid. Obviously, there's a join here which you can just about see, and you can just about see the joins, and just pinch it together as you fix it down. And down on the ends, we've stapled it, as you can see, to the battens so that it is solid, and you can already feel under your feet that it's just one solid piece, and the sand's compacted and there's absolutely no movement on this at all. And you can see that we've laid it the opposite way to the weed membrane, and then we'll lay the grass the opposite way to the underlay. Now you can see all of the artificial grass underlay is down. Lovely product from Ball & Young, Aristo cushion. And already, I had my son out here earlier, and it's so soft, he loves it. Falls over, nice and safe. And yeah, really nice. So we just laid the grass out, and the first thing you want to do is go over and check that there's no line faults or problems with the grass before you cut it, because the people that you bought the grass from probably won't accept a return if you've already cut it. So it's very important to check the grass for faults, any problems with the tufting, and just generally check it over, because once you start cutting it, it's yours. So it's very important to check it. And if you've got more than one piece, you've got to check both pieces obviously before you cut it, because it's probably going to have to colour match. So if you cut this one, for example, and the other one over there isn't cut, and you find a fault in it, you might have trouble getting it from the same dye batch. Now, I'm very lucky that I was there when this was cut at the factory, so that I could check this piece over before it was wrapped up. So I know that there's no problems with it, but generally you're probably not going to have that opportunity. So it's always best to check it before cutting it, because once you cut it, it's yours, and if there's any problems, you're going to have to sort it out. We've got the grass laid out. The most important thing is the pile direction, because obviously a pile goes two ways. You've got rough and smooth, and grass always looks better when you're looking at main angle towards the rough. So when you put your hand across it from the house there, you want to be looking at the rough, which is that. So always looks best looking against the pile, because when it's been on a roll for however long it's been on, it's going to crush down going with the pile like that, and it will look flat until the pile will burst out, brushed, whatever you're going to do to it. So it's always best to look at your main direction against the pile, so that it looks best from inside the property until the piles have plenty of time to burst, and eventually it'll look the same from both ways. As you can see, we just rolled the first bit of grass out. Now, when you first roll it out, it looks really, really green, and that's because it's designed for the sun to bleach it. So it's going to lose about 10% of its sheen, if that makes sense, after a couple of weeks in the sun. This one here is a cypress point from Horizon, and you can see it's got about 4 different colours of grass in it, and the pile isn't too long. And I've done lots of jobs where the pile is really, really thick, and basically all the time it sits really flat. But if you get a short but dense pile like this one, you see the pile's not very high, but it's really dense. Now you can measure piles in grams per square metre. I think this one is about pile weight of 1200 grams per square metre. And what that means is although it's not very high, it's really, really dense, which means you'll never see the backing beneath it, and the pile will sit upright. And when we're finished, we'll give it a brush and put some sand in there, which I'll show you in the next stage. But don't worry about the creases yet. All you need to do, if you've got a join, is roll it out, and if you look on the back of the grass, it will have these lines of stitches. Now, you can't join it on the edge that it's supplied with, because that won't run straight. So what you need to do is find a row of tufts like this, and cut all the way down, just showing the tuft. So if you imagine how the grass is made, the gap between these two tufts here, if you look at the pile, you can't actually see it. But where we've got a join, it can accentuate the gaps. So if you imagine if we cut two pieces right next to each other, where the join is, you're going to have two rows of tufts ideally next to each other. So after the pile is brushed in, the join will be invisible and it'll actually be tighter than the rest of the grass. Now it won't make sense till we actually do it, but this is quite a big join. So what we're going to use is we're going to use a Mapai product called G19, which gives us about an hour to work with the join. And whereas over on this side over here, the join is going to only fall about here where my trainer is, and there's only going to be about a 3 metre join. And what I'll do is I'll show you how to join this with mastic and this bigger join with a 2-part Mapai glue, which they use for things like professional football stadiums, Olympic stadiums, and it's just going to give us much more time to work with it and a much stronger join. Because you imagine this join here is right in the main traffic area of the garden, and we don't want it to fail. We want to have enough time to work with it so we're not rushing. So I'll come back after I've cut both pieces in close together, and I'll show you how we set up for the joints. Now as you can see, we're cutting down, and the edge that we've cut, the pile actually goes over the edge. So when you imagine you've got two edges that close together, you're not going to see the join. Whereas the edge we've cut from, you can see that you've got some missing piles. So if you imagine you had two edges like that joining together, you're really going to see the join. Whereas we're going to minimise the visibility of the join by cutting this close, so the pile will naturally sit in to the pile on the other side, and we'll use a special tool when we're finished to make sure we can intertwine the pile, which I'll show you when we get there. So as you can see, we've cut our two pieces of grass back to the pile, and although this isn't joined yet, what we've done is we pull this back, we've got it in position so that when we run our adhesive along the tape, we'll be able to just drop it back in, give it a brush like that, and already you can't see the join that's there. And the reason these bricks are here is we can hold it back with the brick as we go down with the adhesive, and then when we drop the adhesive down, we can go down and weight the join with the bricks so that it's not going to get disturbed, and we'll leave that for about 12 hours before going to do anything else. So what that means is that by the time the join is fully cured, we can then start kicking, cutting, stretching the grass without having to worry about disturbing the joint. Join is now finished. As you can see, it's between these two bricks here, and you can't see it. And what we do is we use a tool like this, which is called a cross-axle seam roller, when the joint is completely set. And what that does is it pushes. If you imagine you've got the two pieces of grass, and it just crosses the pile over like that to completely eliminate the joint. But we'll do all that once the joint is completely set. So we'll leave that now for about 24 hours before we come back and start messing with it. Right, we just removed the bricks from the join, and well, I don't know about you, but you can't see it. I'll tell you where it is, and the only way I know that is because it's exactly in line with the fence post back there. The grass looks quite liney because it's obviously tufted in a straight line, but the more it's walked on and brushed and used, the pile will burst out. But the join is about here somewhere, but we can't tell on this grass because the quality of the grass and obviously the quality of the join. But if you do have a bad join, you can use one of these tools here, and what it does is it brushes the pile and forces it to intertwine. But if you don't have one of these and don't want to buy one, a stiff brush will do, but it obviously won't do the job as well. But I mean, you can't see this join, and that's mainly because the product we use allowed us enough time to do the join properly, which is this Mapai's Addiselects G19. And what I've done is to show you its strength. I did a sample glue here, and you can see that this is the grass, and if we try and pull that, it ain't going anywhere. It is shit to a blanket strong. It is not. You couldn't pull that if you wanted to, and it's a FIFA grade glue, so you could use this on a proper football pitch and have no problems just doing the joins. The only thing is you'd probably use a 300mm wide tape as opposed to a 200mm wide. But for this domestic installation, the 200mm tape is absolutely perfect. But I can't recommend that product enough. But if you do get any on the grass, you just want to get some white spirits or turpentine substitute and clean off instantly. But you get about an hour to work with it once it's installed, and it dries absolutely solid. I mean, it does take a while to cure, about 24 hours before you can start doing stuff with it. But I mean, look, it's absolutely solid. There's no way you're getting that off there at all. It is down. And so yeah, if you want a good join, this is the product to use. It comes in a cream colour. Don't worry about it because you've got plenty of time to work with it. It won't show through the join. And what I used here was a 6mm disposable tile adhesive spreader, which is 15mm wide, and the joining tape is 20mm, so it gives us a real nice size to work with. But as you can see, the finished join is lovely. So we're now going to work on pinning it down to the edges. So what we'll do is we'll get a carpet stretcher and we'll give it a kick in the corners, and what that will do is just get the grass nice and tight and get any lumps of it out before cutting it in. And then what we'll do is we'll use the 50mm nails to pin it down through the underlay, through the membrane to the wood, and that will create a nice solid surface for it to stick onto. And then on the edges where we've got cement, we'll cut it back to this edge here, and it will just sit perfectly in there. If I show you with a small piece, if you imagine the grass is going to get glued down and sit just level with the patio there, and it's going to be one seamless surface from one to the other. And as I've got a close-up, I'll just show you the quality of this grass again, this cypress point from Horizon. It's really good. There's 4 different colours in there. You can't see the backing through the grass, really dense. Can't recommend this product enough. Now you can see the grass has been relief cut back into that flower bed, and we've got a mark here where it is left overnight on its side. So what we're going to do is go around, and we want to get rid of all these small little lumps like this. So what we do is we go to the edges with our kicker down, put some weight on the top, and just give it a small little, just like that, and you can just see the grass getting some tension. And we want to do that all the way along, sort of every 6 inches. And what we'll do is we'll start stretching from here, which is the right hand side, to the right. Then we'll do the same with the left hand side back, and then what we'll do is we'll do the either end. So what that means is we've stretched it tight along the width, and then we'll stretch it tight along the length, and then we'll start pinning it down.
One. Good boy. Yay.
Doing so well, Jay.
Ready, go on then.
How many pints, Josh? So what I've done here is I've cut the grass in against the gravel board, and I fixed the first 2 nails in, which I can't even find them now. But the trick is, so I spread my nails every hammer's width, so it's an easy width to remember. So you hammer one in, obviously push the nail down into the wooden stake below, make sure you find it first. And the trick is, before you start hammering the nail, is to spread the pile right apart so you can see the backing just there, and then when you've finished hammering, the pile will naturally close over the top of it and you won't see the nail head. I've done one here somewhere and one back here, and what that will mean is you'll get a nice hidden fixing. And before you, although we've stretched all the way along with our stretcher, you can see there's no ripples there. Just before we hammer one in, so we're going to put one in say for example here, we'll put our stretcher there, put some weight on the top, and we'll just give it and you can see the grass moving ever so slightly, and we're just going to make sure we give it a real good kick. So there's absolutely no slack in the grass, and if you see here when I pick it up, it just falls straight back down, and you can barely pick it up because there's so much tension there. We haven't even pinned the other side yet, so that's all loose on that end. But we're basically, what we're doing is, if you imagine the join in the middle there, you can sort of see where I've been walking, we're trying to stretch from the join back to the fence, because you won't be able to stretch from the other side of the join. Stretch back to the fence here on this side, and then we'll be able to do the other side to get it completely tight.